Of shared meditation. Before the message, I invite you to let your body come into peace. If you want to scooch or shift until you find that spot of comfort, I invite you to do so. Let your gaze soften or close your eyes. And sense the peace of your own breath moving in and out, just as it is. And will you pray with me and for me that as instruments of peace, all that Spirit asks for me to say from my heart, for us to hear, will unfold. And so we center in, opening, softening, letting in the light and the warmth. And in that openness and softness, we embrace all that is, all that calls us to love without ceasing, all that calls us into the tipping point of loving without restraint. With your holy imagination, I invite you to picture that light and warmth, that embrace reaching every cell of your being. Embracing even those parts of yourself that you are certain are unlovable, but bring them to the light of love, knowing that there is nothing in you that is not loved. May the instruments of our voices, of our lives, be the tools of peace, the embrace of love, the heart of joy. And refreshed by that warmth, by that light, I invite you to take a deep breath in, let that out with a sigh, if you will. And slowly, as you are ready, let your eyes open as your heart opens and come back fully into our shared presence here and now. Thanks, Raj. Ron, can you find there you go. Oh, look at that, just like the one I took from our lonely little hydrangea bush out front. From certainty to curiosity, it may involve a tipping point here as well. But I'm going to start with a little story that you may very well have heard already. It is sometimes attributed as a Zen story, sometimes as a Chinese fable, sometimes as a Taoist story. It's about a farmer and his horse. There once lived a poor farmer who lived in a poor village. But this farmer was considered very rich and fortunate because he owned a horse. One day, his horse ran away. His neighbors came to his farm to say they were sorry for his misfortune. But the farmer said, I don't know. Could be bad, could be good. Several days later, the horse returned with 6 strong horses. Once again, the neighbors came by to congratulate him. But the farmer said, I don't know. It could be good, could be bad. Sometime later, the farmer's son went riding on one of the wild horses, but he fell off and broke his leg and arm. The neighbors came by to console the farmer. But the farmer said, I don't know. It could be bad. It could be good. Later, a fierce war broke out between the farmer's country and the neighboring country. When the army came to draft the farmer's son, they found that he was injured and passed him by. Those neighbors approached the farmer with certainty each time, knowing that the situation was either bad or good. I have been that neighbor. The farmer took a stance of curiosity. Could be good, could be bad. So the title of this talk actually stems from a book that I bought, and again, my curiosity about books knows no bounds. But the book is titled Better Than Normal: Virtues for an Off-Script Life by Marianne McKibben Dana. I came across the book because I read her Substack, The Blue Room. I've been following her. She's one of the ministers that I have found on Substack that I feel a certain kindred spiritedness with. And the book she wrote recently stems from a guiding question, hard-earned work with a guiding question. What if life as usual isn't set up in a way that allows people to thrive? That poem, The Tipping Point, that Peggy read earlier, Dana Fald's, right? There's all of those ways that we can sense that life is not set up in many ways for us to thrive. But she also draws on her family's. She's the mother of 3 teenagers, which right there, I see some eye rolling in the room. You already know, if you've ever been in close contact with a teenager, that their contract with the universe is to be, as I used to say when I was teaching, a BS detector. And they are happy to rattle our cages. But in this instance, her 3 teenagers also, who are struggling with the challenges of a neurospicy brain chemistry, but also very challenging mental health struggles. And ultimately, as their family moved through these struggles, she realized that Her question as a parent of what did I do wrong was not the best question to ask. That yes, she wanted to do all that she could, therapy, medication, strategies to help her young adult children and their family ecosystem thrive. She had to prepare those young adults to live in the world with their realities and find some ways of doing that with grace. But she also recognized that the world was not always hospitable to people who fall outside the norm for any reason. Brain chemistry, sexual orientation, color of our skin, national origin, where we live, our socioeconomic class, all of those outside of the norm made her question, well, what is normal? Irma Bombeck said years ago, normal is a setting on the dryer. Some of you are young enough, you might not remember Irma Bombeck. Normal is only a setting on the dryer. So she moves through this book with 6 virtues that she invites us to think about. 3 that are individual virtues, things that we think about in our own lives, and then 3 communal virtues. How do we then live in relationship with each other, building a world that we want to live in where we are all able to thrive? So some of these questions, and I am going to leave us with a lot of questions and no answers today. Get excited. So here are some of the questions that hold this book, or this book holds. What does the modern struggle to survive and thrive reveal about the culture we live in and dysfunctional systems we take for granted? And what do we ultimately want for one another? This was where I found her next question so interesting. What do we want for one another? A few tools to get by in an ailing world? Or a world transformed in a way that's healthier for all of us? A world that's transformed by the spiritual awakening of us all. So those tools, mindfulness, therapy, all of those are good tools that we use to live in the world as it is. But can we also ask questions that help us collectively transform the world in practical, powerful ways? So in my meanderings from certainty to curiosity, I also had signed up for an online writing workshop that I totally forgot I signed up for in the certainty of the days of my last few weeks, a writing workshop with Rosemary Watola Tromer. You know I use her works often. The title of the workshop was called Curiouser and Curiouser, a poetic invitation to write into wonderment. I forgot about it, but luckily, in the miracle of technology, I received the recording. And that's what I spent time with yesterday. Curiouser and curiouser, tying into this grappling in my own heart of what moves me from certainty to curiosity. And is certainty always a bad thing? I certainly do love coffee every morning. And I am certain that Spirit has a great sense of comedic timing to land that in my inbox with all of this meandering questioning that I have been doing over the last week, getting ready for this. So Rosemary, the poet, philosopher, one of my spiritual guides, asks us to consider questions in our writing that I think are also vital to life. And I think that's why her workshops and her writing resonate so deeply in me. She asks us to think about, okay, what is true? In this situation, in this line of poetry, what is true? And what else is true? How can I push past the known into the unknown? Can I bring my uncertainty into wonderment of what might be possible? Can I let myself be surprised by where my writing and my life leads? She offers these phrases to invite us to hold ourselves lightly. Maybe, perhaps, sometimes, it could be good, could be bad. I wonder. I still don't know. And what if? Can I bring my uncertainty into wonderment of what might be possible? McKibben Dana writes about the kind of certainty where the world operates by a set of consistent rules and success is simply a matter of figuring them out and playing the game. That kind of certainty might lead us to forget that our efforts and intentions, while so important, also may come up against moments when something is out of our control. There is so much in the world today that makes me feel that kind of uncertainty that feels more like the ground is shifting always, and I don't know where to land. So it could be good, it could be bad. Can my uncertainty and curiosity lead me into wonderment? And how can I take that kind of certainty that makes me point fingers at when something goes wrong? Those people, if only those people would get themselves together, everything would be okay. That kind of judgment, or the kind of self-blame that we have when something doesn't work out the way we thought it would. The job doesn't land. The relationship falls apart. A loved one dies. Can we know that we are good enough, that we are enough, and not blame ourselves for outcomes of things that were beyond our control? And at the same time, like we heard in the daily word, those polarities. Can we find some harmony in the paradox of sometimes certainty is a gift that we arrive at after prayer and discernment, time and quiet listening to the voice of the Holy One inside us, as us. Sometimes uncertainty is so unsettling that we have to find some way to be grounded despite the uncertainty. And in that paradox, can we find some way to bring them into harmony, into integration? Those neighbors approaching that farmer with certainty every single time, knowing the situation was good or it was bad. They're there to remind us that we don't always know, and sometimes the situation just is. And all we can have control over is how we react. When the rug's pulled out, do we reach out a hand to say, help, I need a friend? Can we be the friend who reaches out when we know someone's world has been upended? Can we do our own work the joyful work of training our spirits to rest in the questions, to not come to certainty too soon, to listen, to pray, to pace, whatever brings you to that space of, okay, I surrender. Can I see the pain and suffering in the world and know that it is true, but also ask what else is true? Where is beauty showing up still? Where is kindness showing up? Where is mutual caring showing up? McKibben Dana reminds us that the word curiosity connects to the Latin word for care. I never knew that. I should know that as an English major. It's an act of love to remain rooted in curiosity, in openness to possibility. When we care, she writes, we invest our time and attention. When someone pushes my buttons, I can react with certainty that they are wrong and I have been wronged. Or I can take a deep breath and ask myself what else is true here. What button in me did they just shine a light on? So in ways small as that, to those bigger world issues that we see, certainty is not a bad word. Curiosity is not the only way, but holding the paradox of those two things and finding that harmony, that integration, to come to that place where our certainty rests in discernment, in trust. That wherever we are, God is. And what is asking to be alive in us right now? That kind of yes, that certainty that comes from that deep knowing that we've let go of what our ego wants us to do. The ego that's there to help us move forward in the world, but that we've let go of that and opened to the voice of Spirit within. I know I can either feel the certainty of doom and suffering, those unsettling, shifting sands of uncertainty. And if I can take all of that in and remain curious, opening my eyes, my heart, my mind, the questions then become different than why me? Why this? Why can't we change it? To how? How might I be part of the change? How is life asking me to cooperate with it? That question from Myrtle Fillmore through Kelly Isla. What is life asking of me? How am I cooperating with it? What is my spirit here to learn? How am I learning how to love without ceasing, without restraint? In what ways is my heart alive to both the certainty that the pain of the world is real? How can it live with the certainty that the pain of the world is not the final answer? The tipping point is always love. And it is not love that feels just like a happy emotion. It's love that sometimes asks us to wrestle with our doubts, with our fears, to hold them lightly and turn them over to the curiosity of a spirit that is alive with love. So may we find those small and big ways that life is asking us to hold it all and to show up and be part of that tipping point. To live into that larger truth that the source of love is the ultimate power. And despite all evidence to the contrary, where we point our eyes and our hands and our hearts still matters. May we be instruments of peace. May we be instruments of loving without restraint. And may we hold those times when our fear lands us certainty, in certainty that that other person is the cause of it all. May we find some grace to embrace that divine in ourselves and in every being. And that is sometimes challenging work. So we do it together. And so it is.